following episode of Destination Animation was pre-recorded around the end of September. As such, certain elements of the news and trailer section may be out of date. Also, the audio at the end on Carrie's part may be a little weird due to a technical glitch. Thank you.
Welcome to Destination Animation, your trip around the world of cartoons and anime, stop motion and puppetry, special effects and CGI, and everything in between. I'm your host, Becca McGraw.
And I'm your host, Carrie Dreblow.
And I'm Jason Nutt, and today we are taking you to the land of elves and dwarves and it's Lord of the Rings.
Long ago, before man recorded his history, it was the time of Middle-earth. There, in a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit.
In the lands of Middle-earth, there was an area called the Shire, and they're in a hole in the ground.
We've watched the Rankin Bass one a bit too much.
No, but this isn't the Rankin Bass version, though. We're talking about Ralph Bakshi.
Yes, we are.
Ralph Bakshi, animator extraordinaire and director of such classics as Fritz the Cat, Wizards, Coonskin.
Uh-oh.
Cool World.
Cool World, yeah. I don't think even he wants to remember Cool World.
Did he do heavy metal or whatever it was?
No, that's a common misconception.
Oh. Now we should talk about Bakshi a bit, because I think he's a significant man in the animation industry.
Yes, he is, actually.
But, man, we gotta pick up our concessions first before we start talking about anything movie-related. Hey, everyone. Has anyone watched any good cartoons lately?
No, because you made me watch the Emoji Movie again.
I sure did.
Over the weekend.
God.
How dare you?
I would like to say a small prayer for Jason. Jason,
Yes.
your sacrifice has not been in vain.
It
Rest in peace.
was absolutely in vain.
In the arms of emojis.
Goodness. Carrie, had you ever seen Emoji Movie?
No, I haven't. I don't know if I want to. I've just
don't?
seen a lot of
You don't.
reviews tearing it to shreds.
It's on Netflix, so it was my first time seeing it. I forget why I wanted to watch it. I think we were just browsing Netflix while we were eating our Burger King, and we're like, well, I wanted to watch Emoji Movie.
And then we did, and
Okay.
90 minutes later, the world was a worse place.
You needed a drink to get through it.
I did. I had some vodka that we've had since our lobster party, and I drank it.
The listeners don't know what Lobster Party is.
Well, that's fine. It's an
Yes.
exclusive club. You aren't invited, listeners.
Carrie, you're invited.
Yes.
Just gotta make it to where you live, and then I'll be invited.
Yes.
So, Carrie, here's my review of the Emoji Movie just for you.
Okay.
It's nothing. It is absolutely nothing. This movie is a non-film. It's nothing. Like, it didn't even make me mad. It's just not anything.
It made me mad.
Why did it make you mad?
Because it's nothing.
It's a movie about nothing.
It's about nothing. No, it has nothing to say good. It regurgitates a lot of themes and tries to have this forced-in feminist message like, oh, men are always taking credit for things that women come up with, like, that comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of left field from Wild Style, who you
What?
accidentally did call her Wild Style.
I did, because that's who she is, the jailbreak character. She's just Wild Style. The High Five character is annoying. And
He's terrible.
He's terrible. I hate him. I hate Gene. I hate Mel. I hate Smiler. They drive me to drink.
They did drive him to drink.
Confound them.
Gee, I don't know, Becca. Your impromptu review made just for me doesn't sound very convincing.
Here, I'll convince you. Do you like product placement?
No.
Do you like unintentionally hilarious lines and moments?
Okay, well, I do like that. I am a fan of, like, hilarious awful things.
Like, at the very end, when, like, I'm not gonna spoil anything for the people who care.
Nobody cares.
Well, whatever. At the end, right before the climax happens, we get a flashback of all our favorite scenes from the movie.
Yeah, it
just-
does a flashback.
It does a flashback, and the movie already feels really, really fast. That's one good thing about it. It's not one of those bad movies where it just feels like it takes forever. The movie is fast-paced as hell, and usually that would bug me, but it doesn't here for obvious reasons.
It's nothing. I don't care about the main character. I don't care about his friends. I don't care about the villain. I don't care about the conflict. I don't care about the human outside the phone. I don't care about the world. I don't care about anything in this film.
So anyway...
All right, well, I will consider continuing to ignore this product.
Yeah. I think that's the closest we'll get to an actual episode of Emoji Movie.
I'll pretend I'm talking to a telemarketer. Like, yeah, I don't think I'm interested in buying. But what if you? No. I'm hanging up now. Goodbye.
DreamWorks said no. We're going to Sony.
Goodness. Never forget that the Popeye movie died for this.
Ugh, the Medusa movie died for this.
Listeners, look up the Sony's Popeye demo on YouTube. That's what we could have had. Instead, we got the Emoji Movie. Gendy Tartakovsky was going to direct it, and I think Tom Kenny was going to play Popeye, or at least he did in this demo.
And Grey Delisle, or Grey Griffin as she goes by now, was going to be Olive Oil, or at least she was in the demo.
You'd seen that, right, Carrie?
I actually had not seen that.
Ooh, we should... everyone pause the podcast. We got to show Carrie what we missed instead of getting the Emoji Movie.
Okay, pause, resume.
All right, we're back. So that's the movie we're not getting because they made the Emoji Movie instead.
Boo.
Boo.
Yes. Apparently there was a shakeup at Sony after the whole hack happened, and the new head of Sony Animation just threw everything out that they were working on except for like Hotel Transylvania 3 and Spider-Man, I think. So
that's terrible.
Watching that reminded me, though, the reason I had wanted to watch the Emoji Movies because we had just watched both Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movies.
Oh, yeah. And those are actually good. Those are delightful movies.
They are delightful.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, the first one especially. The second one's good, too, but the first one's very cute.
Yeah, I'd never seen them, and they're actually really good. Why can't you do more of that, Sony?
Mr. T is hilarious in that movie.
Yeah. Everyone's hilarious in it. Yeah, Sony is, like, the studio to go to if you want, like, really visually different CGI movies. Yeah. And then they did the Emoji Movie, which was stock standard.
Terrible.
It made me want to throw up. And not just from the Burger King we were eating.
Yeah, but you know, it's not the worst animation ever. But even then, it's not the best.
The animation is fine. The character designs are so
basic.
Freaking drab.
Yeah.
So joyless.
It says something when the only character I like is the one from the Just Dance app.
Yes.
Yeah, and Sony does some really interesting visual movies for sure. Like the one in particular that I want to think is the Peanuts movie. Like you'd think
that's
just
Blue Sky.
That's Blue Sky.
Oh, Blue Sky. I thought it was Sony. I'm sorry. But the Popeye trailer, like, that is some great squash and stretch. They really did a good job of taking the 40s and 50s golden age aesthetic and just making it into CG. I like it.
Yeah. And it's like kind of like what Gendy did with Hotel Transylvania, bringing a lot of like 2D sensibilities into it and like strong silhouettes and such. It's good.
Yes, it's good.
And of course, also Into the Spider-Verse is our treasure, our child, our beloved, our precious.
Yes. Miles Morales.
If it took one Emoji Movie to get Into the Spider-Verse, then it's worth it.
One Emoji Movie.
One, no more.
Who does Angry Birds?
Sony, I think.
Uh-oh.
Well.
Anyway, what else is happening?
Let's see. Oh, speaking of Spider-Man, actually, this isn't animation, but we made fun of it in Infinity Train, so I'm gonna mention it here. Sony and Marvel are back together.
Aww.
By the time this episode comes out, it'll be like old news, but it's recent when we're recording this.
Yeah, call this an amendment, because I think by the time Infinity Train dropped, our Infinity Train episode dropped, I think like 2 days later.
Yeah.
They made up. Yeah.
Well, good for them.
Well, I don't know if they made up, but like Disney backed off on their end of the deal. Like they were trying to get 50% of all theatrical profits. Sony said no. So Disney backed down to 25% and Sony said yes.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of how negotiations work. I had a feeling they'd figure it out.
Yeah, eventually.
That's how America works. It's all about the green.
What else is in the news, guys?
What else is green? The Muppet
green,
Show.
It's the green you need. When I look into your future, it's the green that I see.
But not on Disney Plus, because the Muppet Show they were working on for Disney Plus, it's not happening. It fell through, and Disney.
On my notes, you have it open on your screen.
Hush! I'm pointing my head over here so that the mic will get me. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Disney does not know how to use the Muppets still. To this day, they don't know how. They seemed like they were going to make a comeback with the 2011 movie, and then
2011 movie's delightful.
It's delightful, and then
I love it.
And then they released the sequel to that at a bad time in like the middle of March or something.
Yeah,
in 2014. It's all right, but like tanked box office wise. And then the TV show.
Yeah, the TV show I feel like is really what killed it.
Yeah, it started out rough, but then it got better as it went along, but they canceled it. So now Muppets are kind of in limbo where they just do advertisements and stuff again.
They should just add them to Kingdom Hearts.
Yes, I would love that. either sell the rights to somebody who will use them, like Netflix, who used the Dark Crystal property to very good effect, or do something with them.
Yeah.
I love the Muppets.
Speaking of Disney Plus, that's next month, huh?
Yes.
And Disney is moving
apparently.
all their stuff to there. Like Gravity Falls is coming off of Hulu in a couple weeks.
crap.
Well, it's going to Disney Plus. I saw someone on Reddit who's apparently a beta tester for Disney Plus saying that it's actually a pretty good platform with a lot of selection. Don't know the veracity of that. It was just a random person on Reddit, obviously. But we'll see. Especially for at the price point and Disney's library, it could be worth it.
Yeah.
We're obviously getting it.
Yeah, we're gonna get it.
Yeah.
From a consumer standpoint, yeah, but it is still a bummer that, great, one more thing that we have to pay for every month.
Yeah.
Is Disney's other, like, little branch-offs, like, having different streaming services, like ESPN, ABC, and stuff?
I think so, yeah.
So that's a pain.
Although I thought Disney Plus was gonna include ESPN, but I'm not sure.
It'd be nice if it included ABC, because that would include, like, Boy Meets World and Dinosaurs and stuff.
Yeah, I'm assuming Disney Plus will include ABC. Like, ESPN, I know it still hasn't completely divorced itself from cable, so it's kind of used, like, this is kind of a criticism that a lot of cable companies have, is that ESPN costs way more than, like, any other channel on cable to include in their packages. So currently ESPN is still only available as specific add-ons.
Right.
Which is, like, I think, like, $10 a month or something for live sports and whatnot, so...
Good thing I'm not a sports fan.
Yes. So we did eat at the ESPN restaurant at Disneyland.
Oh yeah, that's not there anymore.
It's not?
No, they replaced it with something else.
We were the last guests at the ESPN restaurant 2 years ago.
And the Disney Princess restaurant.
That's true. Ariel's Grotto.
Yeah. Anyway, we've gotten our concessions. We have our newsreel. Now let's look at the trailers. What came out recently?
My medal failed me. I didn't want to watch this trailer, but I did. The confirmed final season of BoJack Horseman, season 6.
BoJack Horseman.
What's it going to be, 8 and 8?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they split the season into 2. Part of it's going to air this month, and then part of it in January. 8 episodes.
I hate when they do that, but at least it's delayed gratification.
Yeah,
I was more mad about it. The previous seasons were, 10 episodes each? So when I
12.
first heard that, I'm
12,
like,
yeah.
Okay, 12. I was like, what? We're only going to get 5 or 6 episodes in half a season? That's lame. And then I found out it's 8, and I'm like, all right, I'm a little more okay with that.
Yeah, that was confirmed by Lisa Hannawalt herself on her Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Tuca and Birdie.
Rest in pieces. So a lot of people were disappointed at the announcement that it was the final season. I assumed it would be. Unfortunately, I didn't participate in the last BoJack episode we did. We will obviously be doing more BoJack episodes this new season.
Yes, for sure.
But actually, my brother, our composer, has a really solid theory that each season of BoJack represents a stage of depression. So I thought after season 5 that it could have been it. And it took them a while to announce season 6 too, didn't it?
Yeah.
So I assumed it was done anyway. So just hearing, we are getting season 6, for me was nice.
Yes.
Yeah, BoJack is great, so I will take whatever content from it I can get. And as an anime fan, I actually like it when a series ends. When it that is one of the things that I like about anime, is that it completes its stories, where a lot of cable TV just kind of drags on forever and never ends.
Speaking of anime, the new season of Pokemon, a 22-year-long anime. We got our first images from it. Ash has a new design. He's got a new co-star, and it's going to take place across all the regions. I have nothing to say about this. I literally just brought it up to counter your point.
Yeah. Didn't he finally win?
He finally won. Our boy Ash won the Alola League. He finally won a league.
Yeah, so you think he'd retire now. He's like a 10-year-old boy. He needs to retire.
Everyone thought they'd retire the character, but it looks like he is going to be in the new season. So
I think they'd be up in arms if they retired him at this point.
No, everyone's so sick of Ash. It's been a long time.
This reverent character that has defined the series.
My wish is that the anime, that they do a Pokemon anime that's more heavily based on the games, more heavily based on the manga. The manga is great. You know, we're using the game protagonists and stuff.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, we did get Pokemon Adventure.
That is true.
We did. It was very good. Pokemon Chronicles is very cool, too.
I actually was talking about, I guess I'm summarizing anime as, seasonal anime rather than, the big serial anime that have been going on in Shonen Jump forever. One Piece. But, yeah. But,
you're gonna fight One Piece?
You gonna go?
I like
One
Piece, but it's 800 plus episodes. How is one person ever supposed to watch all of that?
I have a feeling they don't.
Like, okay, Full Metal Alchemist, 52 episodes. Perfect. Brotherhood, like 60-some episodes. Perfect. You get enough that you can define the characters, spend time with the characters, enjoy the characters, and then it comes to a satisfying conclusion that says something with its conclusion.
Digimon 2.
Oh yeah, Digimon.
Digimon ends every season.
That is true.
Yeah, that's like self-contained seasons that are related to each other with characters and stuff.
Yes.
I assume. I haven't watched enough Digimon.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Digimon is a treasure.
Yes.
I have had numerous fans of the show explain it to me, though, so...
Speaking of anime, there was a new trailer for, as we discussed previously...
Lupin the Third.
The first.
It's called Lupin the Third, the First.
Oh.
Yes.
Did you see the new trailer, Carrie?
I did. It still looks awesome.
It
does.
It looks amazing. It looks like...
I hope they release it this way.
I do expect that probably G-Kids will bring it over.
Yeah, our city doesn't do, like, the special shows like that, really. They did Ghibli Fest.
Uh-huh.
But usually for special showings, we have to go to a town like 2 hours away, which
Okay.
we can make a trip out of it.
Yeah, it might be worth it.
Yeah.
Generally, like, G-Kids does the licensing for all the big anime films, so they did Your Name a while ago. They tend to release just, like, all of them.
But yeah, it looks fun, energetic, cool, clean. I want it.
I want it.
I do feel like we are reaching a point where finally 2D animated properties are actually starting to look good in CG.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it looks so good.
So tasty.
Also, we got another new trailer for Frozen 2.
Yes, we
And
do.
new song.
New song, Into the... What is it?
Breath of the Wild.
Breath
Yeah,
of
Into
the
the
Wild.
Wild. Into the Unknown or whatever it's called.
Will it be as big a hit as Let It Go? Never. Will it be good? Probably.
Yeah. Will it be overplayed like Let It Go?
I didn't find Let It
We
Go.
shall
though.
see. The same songwriters are returning. Kristen
Yeah.
Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez.
Nice.
From the
nice.
same writers as Hasadiga E-Boy.
When Disney makes Frozen 2,
Hasadiga E-Boy.
I'm uncultured.
Hasadiga Ibo means words that we cannot say on this podcast, so we probably shouldn't elaborate.
So we have to censor it.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, Frozen 2 still looking pretty baller.
It does.
I like that tweet I saw today. Did you see it too, Jason?
What was it?
About how it's Garbo that Elsa's shown to be taming the horse because Anna has such horse girl energy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she does.
I'm just excited for the black guy.
Yeah, actually.
Diversity.
Talking about freaking Lord of the Rings, which we'll get to in a second. I think, if I remember it right, the only black guy I ever saw in the Peter Jackson movies is from the extended edition of Return of the King, and the first time I ever saw it, I said, "Hey, look, a black guy!" I could just blur it out. Ugh.
Yeah.
Diversity.
There is some kind of problematic race stuff going on in the background of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like a black guy in the Gondorian army. A good guy.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. But yeah, like in terms of the book itself, the Haradrim are kind of similar to like C.S. Lewis doing the Calormen as the villains. It's like,
The Easterlings.
yeah, the villains come from the east and the south and the desert lands. Kind of problematic.
A little problematic.
Speaking of racist Disney, Lindsay Ellis did a good video on racist Disney.
Woke Disney.
Woke Disney.
Yeah, absolutely.
Made me not want to see Dumbo. I still haven't
I
seen it.
still maintain that Dumbo is not good.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I don't think it's good.
Yeah, that's fair. I think of the Disney remakes I've seen this year, it's probably the best, but that's not saying much.
Really?
Yeah.
You think Dumbo was the best one?
Yeah.
I like Aladdin still.
Aladdin sucks.
My
I mean-
hierarchy would be probably Aladdin and then either Dumbo or The Lion King.
Wow.
I hated Aladdin.
Lion King was boring.
Lion King
Are we
was
really
alright.
still fighting over this?
Yes, anyway.
This is going to destroy our marriage.
Oh no. Let's save our marriage by talking about a movie that you have a passing disinterest in.
It's true. I used to be really big in a feature presentation. Da-na-na-na-na. I used to be really into Lord of the Rings, like back when the Peter Jackson movies were first coming out. Like I was super into them. That's what it's kind of what got me into swords and sorcery stuff.
Yeah.
It just faded over time.
That's your history. What's your history with Lord of the Rings, Carrie?
Oh, my whole history though is I did read Fellowship of the Ring at school. I took it out from the library. I got like halfway through. I was like, God, I'm dying. I returned it. And then, like, we had library class later, and I was like, all right, I'll take it back out and try to get through it. Wasn't a fan. I've read The Hobbit. I like The Hobbit.
Well, that's good.
Hobbit is a much easier read, I feel.
Yeah, The Hobbit is where I started, so.
Yes, but what is your complete history, Carrie? Say.
Okay, so it is a long history. It is a story that began 10,000 years ago when the courage of men failed. So, in third grade, my mom introduced me to The Hobbit, and I read it, and I loved it. And my goal from then on was to read one of the Lord of the Rings books every year from there on. So, or was it fourth grade? I don't know.
You're a real Christopher Lee, Carrie.
First year I read The Hobbit. Second year I read Fellowship. Third year I read The Two Towers. Fourth year I started reading Return of the King and never finished it. Still haven't finished it. I'm bad. But as soon as I used to subscribe to a gaming magazine called InQuest, which, because they were one of the primary magazines that talked about Magic the Gathering, which is a game that I play on the side. And they started talking about, they also did like geek culture stuff. So they started talking about the Lord of the Rings movie a couple years before it actually came out. They started talking about the cast, they started talking about the production, and I just started geeking out over it. And I saw the first movie in theaters, and it blew my freaking mind. And I saw it again, and I saw it again, and I saw it again. And I dragged my mom to see it again, and she fell asleep, but I wanted her to get into it. I was like, Mom, this movie's so good. You gotta love it. And I've just been the hugest fan of Lord of the Rings. When Return of the King came out, I said, this is my favorite movie of all time. That stood for like maybe 5 years after that, and it's still one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes.
Fellowship is my favorite, Return of the King second, Two Towers third, but they're all fantastic movies. And then I did see Ralph Bakshi's movie once. I saw the Rankin Bass Hobbit, and my fantasy nerd friend John introduced me to the Rankin Bass Return of the King. And that's my history. I still love it.
Yes. I never saw them in theaters because when they came out, respectively, I would have been 7, 8, and 9. So I saw them when they came out on like DVD. My older sister rented them, and I remember actually being kind of scared when the ring wraiths showed up, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm too scared. I'm too scared. Let me know when it's not scary." And then she's like, "Well, then you're gonna miss the whole rest of the movie." So I guess that like inspired me to grow some balls. So
Jason hit puberty that day.
Yes. So I watched it, and I loved it, and I watched them all, and I love them. And all three movies are just movies that me and especially my little sister would watch like constantly. So we grew up with those movies. And then we had the animated Hobbit on VHS for years before Lord of the Rings, I think. But I only ever watched it when I realized, oh, it's a prequel to Lord of the Rings. And yeah, it's good. I like that movie. And years later, we rented Return of the King, the Rankin Bass one, from Hollywood Video. My little sister and I expected to like hate it, but we actually kind of liked it. And then years later, I saw this movie, the Ralph Bakshi movie, and I was like, this is weird. I didn't finish it.
Fair enough.
And yeah, that's it. I love these movies. I didn't see the extended editions until I was like 20, but I love it all.
And
I love
that's when you saw your first black person.
Yes.
Did either of you ever try to marathon all three movies in one sitting?
In one sitting? No.
I tried and failed like 3 times.
I have friends who have definitely done it, though.
You could do it. You could make a whole day of it.
Yeah.
Even the extended editions, which are like altogether probably 12 hours.
Yeah, the theatrical cuts are already like 3 hours back to back, back to back.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, this was definitely a movie series that defined, especially in my teenage years and, like, early 20s. I watched them all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They're cool. How about this Bakshi guy?
Very interesting character.
I never saw any of his other works. I saw Mars Girl's review of Felix the Cat. So yeah. I've seen Felix the Cat.
Fritz the Cat.
Felix the Cat is something different. Fritz the Cat. So I know, like, some of its content.
Yeah. The only other movie of his I've seen in, like, almost full is Wizards, which I caught on TV, and I thought was weird.
Yeah. He was making adult animation at a time where, would it be fair to say that wasn't a thing?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can get into the history. Like, one of the reasons why Ralph Bakshi is such an interesting guy is because in the golden age of animation, which for a little bit of history, that kind of started in the late 1920s with Disney, the Fleischer Studios, and continued through like the 1950s with Warner Brothers and Hanna-Barbera and all of these people making their own theatrical shorts. And as we parody in our podcast, it started with a newsreel, a cartoon, like the theater used to be your day's entertainment. And then grandma television showed up and everybody started staying home and watching TV all day. And so the movies stopped showing theatrical shorts. And so cartoons kind of moved to TV, and they became relegated to Saturday morning cartoons for the most part. So that was really when you started getting this thing called the animation age ghetto, where they stopped making more serious subject matter, and it kind of just
the market
became...
being saturated with really low quality,
Yeah, Don Bluth had some opinions about Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, read them, they're good.
There's an interview between Don Bluth, Ralph Bakshi, and one of the animators who did Tron.
Yeah, it was on Nightcap, which was like an early cable program from like the early 80s. And here's what Don Bluth said about Saturday morning cartoons. He said, "I think the thing that's done the most harm in our industry is Saturday morning cartoons, because they've lowered the art form down to just simply a baby rattle. All it is something you plunk the kids down in front of, and it jumps up and down and goes, eh, eh, eh." And... the form, and then he says that they're made mainly for the purpose of making money. Money is the bottom line. No one cares what they look like. No one cares if they say anything. And that was kind of the norm in the 70s. This is like the Bronze Age of animation, as it is called, just because it was just Saturday morning cartoons and no one was making high quality things anymore. Disney died 10 years ago and no one cared, so that's all you had is...
Disney movies were kind of suffering during this period.
Yeah.
And then Fritz the Cat came out, and all of a sudden now there's this new market for X-rated cartoons from...
Oof.
Which they dug into that with the marketing. They said, we're not X-rated for no reason, baby, and
And they weren't.
Yeah. Goodness.
Cat movies.
Yes. Kitty titties. So whenever you hear a boomer or a Gen Xer lamenting over how, man, cartoons were better when I was a kid, or even a older millennial, you can say, to heck with you. Recycled backgrounds. Everyone had a neck collar, so you can only animate the head.
Are you
Fred
Fred?
Flintstone, I see you. Yogi Bear, I see you. Cartoons are better now.
Hanna-Barbera kind of started this style of limited
Hanna-Barbera.
animation, so...
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Hanna-Barbera, God love them, but you really cut corners.
Yeah. To be fair, Scooby-Doo is a treasure, and I will defend that one, but...
Oh yeah, of course.
Scooby-Doo, did Scooby-Doo just turn, Did Scooby-Doo just turn, what, 50?
50,
Yes.
yes.
50.
Premiered in 1969.
Happy birthday.
Hot.
But anyway, Ralph Bakshi also did a few TV shows of himself. He did the reboot of Mighty Mouse in the 80s, and a lot of animated creators, especially on TV, credit him for reviving their interest in animated cartoons for television.
Yeah, now I will say, cartoons in the 80s got significantly better. Part of that was...
Transformers.
Yeah. Well, basically, the Reagan administration passed a limit that now toy companies could fund cartoons. There used to be a split there, and so that is when all of this corporate money started flooding into Saturday morning cartoons, and so that is where
Pony.
My Little Pony, Transformers, the Ninja Turtles. That was all toy companies trying to sell their product.
And
Which
so
is funny.
they did.
Ninja Turtles, the original comic, was a lot more adult.
Yeah.
I don't think any adaptation has ever gone that dark.
Anyway, Ralph Bakshi. I thought it would be interesting to sort of compare his... because you might think that Peter Jackson's movie was the first to ever try to adapt Lord of the Rings because it was what many considered to be an unfilmable film.
You fools!
It is
You're
very
wrong.
hard to adapt, I will say that.
Yeah, back in the 60s, the Beatles came to Stanley Kubrick. This is all real.
This is a buck-wild story
Yeah,
already.
this is all real. The Beatles came to Stanley Kubrick to do an adaptation where they were the stars. Ringo was Frodo, and... No, Ringo was Paul.
Ringo was Paul?
Frodo was Paul. Ringo was...
Jason, you gotta get your conspiracy right. It's Paul is dead, not Ringo was Paul.
Okay, so it was...
I prefer Ringo was Paul.
George was Gandalf, and John was Gollum. And I think Stanley Kubrick was actually... The only reason he said no was because he considered it unfilmable, not because the Beatles wanted to star as those characters.
So the Beatles were going to make an unfilmable movie, but they wouldn't be the vultures in Jungle Book.
Yeah. More's the pity.
More's the pity.
Yeah, and then the guy who directed Exorcist 2, what's his name? John Borman.
Exorcist 2 is a treasure.
Yeah, he wanted to make an adaptation, but it was completely removed from J.R.R. Tolkien's literature. There was a scene where, to get into the Mines of Moria, Gandalf was gonna dig a hole, put Gimli in the hole, and beat him until he figured out what the password was.
I don't understand this sentence.
Then Galadriel was gonna seduce Frodo.
Yikes.
It's crazy.
Oh, Lord.
It would probably be a lot more filmable if you stuck with the text.
Yeah, was that the problem this whole time? It's not that it was unfilmable, it's just everyone in the 60s was on psychedelic drugs.
Probably.
Most likely.
Because Ralph Bakshi came along, and he, to his credit, he actually understood and had an appreciation for the text.
Aruman.
Hush, hold on, we'll get to that. So, he bought the rights. He went to a bunch of studios. MGM rejected it. He had to buy back the rights from MGM. He went to United
Artists.
Yeah, United Artists. He went to United Artists, and they said, all right, we'll do it. They didn't understand Lord of the Rings at all, but they, let him do it. And we have this movie.
Yeah, which...
Is that a good thing?
Well,
yeah, I think so.
To be fair, the production of this movie is like the inverse of what happened with Peter Jackson's, because they wanted originally to do 3 animated movies, but then they cut it down to 2. There were 2 planned. This was going to be part 1, but I think at marketing stages they took out the part 1 from the title because I guess they didn't think people would go see an unfinished film. Haha.
Yeah, it is very funny to hear that like executives were like, oh, well, if we put part 1 in the title, no one wants to pay to see half of a movie, and now that's like all we get.
Yeah.
This movie's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen the quality of animation fluctuate so much within a single project.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, the thing about it was Ralph Bakshi, he used a lot of rotoscoping in his movies.
What's rotoscoping, Jason?
Rotoscoping is when you film something in live action. This is a technique that goes back decades and decades.
Like to the origin of when we were first trying to animate humans.
Oh yeah, all the way to Snow White.
Hey, I've been reading a book about this. Max Fleischer invented it, and the rotoscoped character that he created was Coco the Clown, and made an entire series called Out of the Inkwell based on rotoscoping, and the critics loved it because this is the first time that they'd seen an animated character move that realistically. Previously, cartoons were very rubber hosey and squash and stretchy and exaggerated.
Like Spinel.
Yes, very similar. So yeah, that was where the rotoscope was invented.
So continue explaining, Jason.
Yeah, rotoscoping is just taking a live action film and drawing over it to make an animated character.
Yeah.
And Ralph Bakshi used it in a lot of his movies, not just this one, but he specifically used it in this one to cut costs and make it go faster, supposedly, but that's not how it happened.
Rotoscoping is neat. It tends to have this weird uncanny effect. What's that Betty Boop cartoon? Is it Sleeping Beauty or...
Snow White.
Snow White. Yeah, the Betty Boop Snow White with the Cab Calloway dance is probably one of the most famous examples that people point to when it comes to rotoscoping and smooth animation. Like, it's gorgeously animated, but also, like, weird.
Yeah.
So, Carrie, you're reading about rotoscoping. Tell us a little more examples, history.
Max Fleischer photographed Cab Calloway doing his foot dances thing. He has a very distinct form of dancing where he like just slowly moves his feet back and forwards and twists his body in all sorts of weird ways. And so Max Fleischer in this cartoon of squashy and stretchy characters suddenly had this ghost character in Minnie the Moocher dancing rotoscope to Cab Calloway's dancing. In Snow White, it was this ghost that was rotoscoped to Cab Calloway's dancing. And then later there was a cartoon that showed a hula dancer rotoscoped with Betty Boop's giant cartoon head on top of it.
I remember that.
Oh, no.
That's so weird.
Oh,
Betty
no.
Boop scared me a lot when I was a kid, and then I saw this crap. It's a little much. What's weird about rotoscoping is like it's like too smooth. Like you're saying, especially when you put it next to really rubbery characters.
Yes.
Have you ever seen A Scanner Darkly? Either of you?
No, I've heard of it, though.
What?
It's a movie that's like A Scanner Darkly, I think it's called. It's like fully rotoscoped. I have no idea what it's about. I have no idea if it's good. It's just registered in my brain because I remember it looked visually interesting.
Yeah.
I guess the modern day equivalent to rotoscoping would arguably be mocap.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's sort of it, yeah.
It's a similar effect.
All right, no argument then.
Yes, mocap that was used extensively on Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Disney also, they did a different form of rotoscoping. What they did is they would shoot live action and they would trace over the live action as a reference and then use the reference to inform their filmmaking decision.
That's probably why their rotoscoping doesn't look as weird.
Yeah, but Snow White and Cinderella were definitely partially like live action characters that use the rotoscope, but not directly.
But yeah, mocap. So, Jason, what's mocap?
Motion capture is when you take a human, you put him in this weird suit with all sorts of dots on it.
Reference points.
Reference points, yeah. And sometimes they'll have like a headgear on them to like specifically record their facial expressions. And the movie that made that famous was Two Towers, which had Andy Serkis as Gollum,
Yes.
who was originally just going to be completely, CGI with no reference at all, but...
Thank God they didn't do that.
Yeah, they really liked Andy Serkis's performance, so they said, well, we're going to use him in the actual movie.
The reference is captured. They filmed the actor with all the dumb little points on them, but then they animate the character over it. Do they actually use the reference points to move the puppet and then the animator, fine-tunes it? Is that
They
what
might.
happens?
I'm not
It
sure.
depends which project.
Oh, okay.
The Robert Zemeckis movies that use motion capture, they basically just have an actor in that suit and they digitize the reference points, and that is the character.
Robert Zemeckis is the director who's famous for doing a lot of
Oh, yeah.
mocap movies, like what, Polar Express?
Polar Express,
Did
A
he do
Christmas
Beowulf?
Carol,
He did do
Beowulf?
Beowulf, yeah.
Mars Needs Moms. Blah.
Saints Moms. He was going to do Yellow Submarine to bring it back to the Beatles.
Oops.
That got canceled.
I actually kind of would have been interested in that.
Yeah, but they don't make those movies no more.
We don't do that, too.
Oh yeah, also Monster House.
Monster
Oh, yeah,
House.
Monster House.
That's supposed to be good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all right.
I don't know, I haven't seen it.
But yeah, motion capture, it was very, new back in 2002. It rhymes. But nowadays, a lot of things are motion captured.
Yeah.
Even video games are motion captured now.
Yeah, like Last of Us and Uncharted.
Uncharted.
Planet of the Apes would be a good
yeah.
recent example of mocap. Andy Serkis again. Andy Serkis's Mowgli was a lot of mocap.
Give Andy Serkis an Oscar, damn it.
Yeah,
Andy
honestly.
Serkis, his entire career has been just doing all these motion capture characters, and he's great.
There's no Oscar for that, so give him all the Oscars.
Yes.
Do what the Academy did with Walt Disney. Just give them a special award since the category doesn't exist.
Give him the little, what's the statue's name? Is it Oscar? Give him an Oscar that has all the little mocap points on it.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be
cute.
great. Not that I really care about the Academy anymore like I did when I was in high school.
Are they introducing Best Popular Movie for this award ceremony?
I don't think so. I think they nixed it.
Good. That was
But anyway, to bring it back to Lord of the Rings.
Gollum's a great character.
Yes.
A great animated character. When we were watching Two Towers the other day, for some reason the frame rate on our Netflix was kind of low.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he looked very video gamey, which I think just kind of speaks for how far video games have come. But in The Hobbit, when did The Hobbit come out?
2012.
2012. So despite coming out in 2012, if I remember right, Gollum in The Hobbit, I remember watching it in theaters and thinking he looked incredible.
Oh, he looked great.
He looked incredible. He looked real.
Yeah, that's the best, obviously, because technology's marched on, but that's the best looking Gollum in any of the movies.
Yeah.
He looked better than Azog.
He looked better than that one dwarf.
Oh, Billy, what's his name? Billy Connolly?
Why? Why was that?
I don't know.
The live action Hobbits are another interesting example where some of it looks amazing and some of it looks like they cobbled it together in 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we will talk about that too in time.
Yes, only in time. But yeah, he looked. I think a lot of it had to do with how they were playing with shadows in that scene. But he looked real and whoa, so good. In the Bakshi movie, he's still actually one of the best animated characters in the film. I fooled you, listeners.
Yes. Most of the cast, all of the cast, are done, rotoscoped. Mm-hmm. And some of it's good, some of it's but Gollum in particular, it really works for some reason, I think, because it's not rotoscoping in the style of an actual human-like character.
I got the sense that a lot of him wasn't rotoscoped at all.
Yeah, it feels like it, especially his face sometimes was really detailed.
What's your thoughts on that, Carrie?
So, I do want to say about this movie in general, a lot of it is rotoscoping, a lot of it is... It's supposed to look like rotoscoping, but it's not rotoscoping.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gollum, maybe they rotoscoped a bit of it, but they just went completely out with the character design, so it's not just like Snow White where it's a big cartoon head on a rotoscope body as much. It's, his entire body is distorted a bit, and it's almost down to the bones, so... Yeah, I feel like probably he's the most animated of the characters in the movie, with the exception of Treebeard, who looks like garbage.
Yeah.
Oh, Treebeard, the walking carrot.
He looks cute in this.
It sticks out like a sore thumb, but as a purely animated character, it's more of this, please.
Yes, please.
Especially in certain characters that we can get to.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings is a long movie, so I don't think we'll go completely plot beat for plot beat.
Everyone
but
knows Lord of the Rings at this point. It's cultural.
I would suggest either seeing the Bakshi movie or the Peter Jackson movie, which you'll probably see the latter first.
Yeah.
The Peter Jackson Fellowship of the Ring, in my opinion, is as close to a Hollywood blockbuster to perfection as you can get. It's just so good.
Oh, yeah, totally.
The world building is excellent. The characters are excellent.
Like Sam.
The score is excellent. My God.
Yeah, and Samwise Gamgee in Peter Jackson's movie is great. Sean Astin is great. Samwise and Ralph Bakshi is a little
He's
haunting.
We're going to see me, Elvis, Mr. Frodo.
Whoopee!
Oh, hooray! God,
Sam, what did they do to you? Why? Why? Is he like that in the book?
No. They needed a comic relief character, so
Why?
I guess Sam was it.
Why? Merry and Pippin.
I don't know. He's still kind of a cute, lovable doofus. I have respect for the animated version of Sam still.
It's such a contrast, though, because we had watched Two Towers like the day before, and Sam he's such a good boy.
Yeah.
And then this.
Yeah.
He sticks out too, character design wise, because all the other hobbits are very soft.
But he's butt ugly.
He's not a pretty boy.
Not like Sean Astin.
Yeah, he has a big cartoony nose. He has a gap in his teeth to show that he's a goofus.
He is a goofus. Some of the character design is actually quite cute. I think the hobbits look pretty cute.
Yeah, Frodo looks like what you'd imagine Frodo would be like, even if you'd never seen Elijah Wood before.
He doesn't have them blue eyes.
Yes.
Should I don't know, this might be, if this is an unpopular opinion, I actually like Frodo in the animated movie almost more than I like him in the live-action movie.
You know what? I kind of agree in terms of,
Yeah, that's valid.
character strength, because...
He's kind of a badass.
Yeah, Bakshi's adaptation of Lord of the Rings is very much truer to Tolkien's word than Peter Jackson's is. And that's not a bad thing to say for the Peter Jackson movies. But to emphasize the severity of the quest and how it just takes a toll on Frodo, they have to make him... weak, and he falls down a lot, and when he gets stabbed by the Nazgul, he's just kind of frothing and wheezing, and he's really sick. But in the book and in this movie, Frodo can actually still kind of hold his own, and he is defiant against the Nazgul. He faces them on the ford, and he pulls out his sword and he says, "By all the Shire, you shall have neither the ring nor me." And it's
Epic.
whoa, Frodo.
Yeah. Then there's a scene where the cave troll is coming out, and he just says, "For the Shire," and stabs it. It's pretty awesome.
For the Shire.
What I really like about the animated version of Frodo is that in the Lord of the Rings movies, they kind of portray his struggle with the ring as he just kind of gets more and more tired looking. Where in this one, you get to see scenes of him fighting against himself, trying to force of will himself to not put the ring on. And you can see how much he's fighting, and it just wears him down. And, the fight against the corruption of the ring felt better in this.
Yeah. The one scene in particular that both movies actually do that's not in the book, the introduction of the Nazgul, the hobbits, they go hide underneath a tree trunk, and Peter Jackson straight up ripped this off from Bakshi, but in his version, Jackson's, Frodo almost puts on the ring. He's compelled to it when the Nazgul gets close, but Sam actually stops him. But in Bakshi's film, Frodo stops himself. So I thought that was interesting.
Scene,
yeah.
Little hobbitses.
Sneaky little hobbitses.
Who else is a good character? John Hurt?
I love your Gollum voice.
I probably sound more like Stitch when I do that.
Oh, precious.
John Hurt's in this movie.
Yes.
The same year... was it the same year the Watership Down movie came out?
I think so.
Yeah, so he was also Hazel Raw in Watership Down. I gotta talk about Watership Down on this dang podcast. I love Watership Down. You guys gotta watch the new show.
Yeah,
yes,
I do.
We should.
I do think Viggo Mortensen's performance is awesome as Aragorn, but John Hurt kills it.
Oh yeah, John Hurt is
He's very mysterious.
He's very good.
And he's not a white man.
I don't know why they made Aragorn look like a Native American, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll take
but,
it.
Man, Aragorn's character is awesome too in this animated movie.
He doesn't wear pants.
It's a little weird. I mean, the fashion choices in this movie are a little weird. Boromir, when he shows up, is like a Viking. I don't know why. I don't know if
Gimli
that's
is tall, and Legolas is beautiful.
Gimli is as tall as Legolas. What the heck?
Yeah. What the heck? Are dwarves just tall in this? You made the hobbits short. Why couldn't you make Gimli short?
What was my reaction to Legolas walking on screen? I was like, I think it was like, oh, are the elves coming? You're like, just watch. And I think he appeared, and I was like, oh, I see. I knew he was either going to be gorgeous or really boring.
Yeah.
You know what? He was right in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to Aragorn's introduction, the whole prancing pony scene in particular, it's very different in both versions.
Yeah.
In Bakshi's, the mood isn't mysterious and dark like it is in Jackson's. It's kind of a little bit more jovial.
Like a pub.
Yeah.
Like a pub.
Again, this is another one that I like the Bakshi version better than the movie.
The animation's weird in this scene.
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about that, because we're an animation podcast.
Yes.
What happened here?
Okay. We talked about the way that this film was made is that Bakshi filmed an entire live action Lord of the Rings. And then
I assume with no sets or anything, really.
they used some sets. Like, they used a set for Minas Tirith and stuff. They probably used tables in the pub and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Some of the characters were rotoscoped. The other half, especially in the crowd shot, used a technique called solarized film, which is basically
Solarized film.
which is basically what would happen if you went to an image editing program and turned the contrast way up. So,
Yeah.
I
I was asking while we were watching, like, what Adobe filter is this? Or Photoshop filter or whatever.
Yeah, like the prancing pony, all the humans are like rotoscope, but they're not like rotoscoped in terms of like finished animation.
it's glaringly obvious what's rotoscoped and what's not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The whole introduction scene too has just this like red filter and shadows, which is weird.
I feel like we gotta try to describe what they look like in the prancing pony for our listeners, because cranking up the saturation is a good way to explain it. Like, imagine like a photograph, like you took the frames of a film and then like painted over them like they were animation cells, kinda. Like, it's really weird looking.
It's a little weird.
Similar.
And I feel if they had maybe gone for the same mood as the Jackson films, where it's like a little something off and foreboding about it,
Yes.
it would have worked, but...
Because this isn't the only place that this technique is used. It's used for, like, orcs and the riders a lot.
Yeah.
And it kind of works with them because it makes them creepy.
Yeah, definitely.
Not in this scene, though. In this scene, it's just weird.
Yeah. I don't mind the more jovial tone of the Prancing Pony in this movie, but like it contrasts with the visuals.
Yeah.
The way that the solarized film looks in particular, how I would describe it is it's large blotches of color, but then there's these really dense shadows. And they are the only characters in the entire movie that have shadows on them, so it's super distracting. None of the animation shells have shading.
It looks like something from an early 90s MTV music video.
Okay.
I think Bakshi actually did a music video with Kanye West at one point.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if it was Bakshi, but Kanye West did a rotoscope music video at one point in his career.
Cool.
Huh. I wonder who animated Jay-Z's animated video. That'd be an interesting study for another time.
Yes.
Well, we should do animated music videos as an episode.
We should.
yeah,
That
it'd
would
be
be neat. What else? Earlier they had the introduction of Aruman, aka Saruman, aka Araman, aka
They
Saruman.
switch back and forth, and it's super distracting.
Yeah, the thing about that is the studio thought that people would confuse Sauron with Saruman, so they said, you gotta make it Aruman.
To be fair, when I was like 10 years old and the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies were coming out, I did get them confused because I was a dumb kid.
Me too. I was a dumb kid. I confused them when I was first reading the books.
I did not. Because one of them is Christopher Lee, the other one's an eyeball.
In the movies, I didn't confuse them. In the books, I confused them. Anyway.
Well, fair enough.
One of them's your husband and one of them's an eyeball.
Yeah, that's just one of the interesting little tidbits about this movie.
The scene where actually Gandalf and Saruman are like standing off against each other and casting magic, and it's weird early 80s effect.
Yeah. A Saruman of many colors!
I thought the effects looked cool. Like, it made me want to see effects like this in a movie that was kind of higher quality.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does kind of have some of that like 80s music video vibe with the spinning universe in the background and the...
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like some of the backgrounds in this movie are, like, for the Shire are really good. But then as it goes on, like, it feels kind of like TV quality at the time.
Yeah, the backgrounds definitely start gorgeous and then get less and less detailed as the movie goes on.
By the end, they're just kind of on purple pieces of cardboard.
Yeah.
Anyway, that shot early on in the movie of seasons passing in Hobbiton.
I don't know why, like, you had, after Bilbo leaves, it's like 17 years pass sleepily in the Shire, and then it goes, like, from winter to spring to
Nice,
summer.
smooth transition.
And then it just goes sort of like fall, winter, spring, summer, like a bunch.
Seriously.
Like, you didn't have to do that.
That's not the only funny edit in this movie. Galadriel.
Oh, yeah. When they go to Lothlorien, like, I don't want to go to Lothlorien. Then Galadriel's like, welcome to Lothlorien.
It'd be a joke in another movie. Oh, this movie. This movie's interesting. It's got a lot of cool ideas and a lot of cool moments, but it's got a lot of stupid stuff happening, too.
There's another one that I thought was funny where it's like, and this is my daughter, Eowyn. And then she's never mentioned again and never gets a line.
Eowyn. Bug-eyed Eowyn.
When Grima was petting the king's beard, that's like me petting your beard, Jason.
Grima. Personal space, personal boundaries, man.
More like Grima.
Oh yeah, Grima. They call him Grima in this.
They say a lot of the names kind of weird.
Yeah, they do.
By which I mean just Grima.
I don't know if it's like more accurate to the books. I'm just more used to how they pronounce this stuff in the movies.
Eero. Uncle Eero.
Uncle Eero.
Edoras instead of Edoras.
Yeah.
I like the pronunciation better in the Peter Jackson movie, but nah.
Yeah.
What are some other characters from M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar?
Ong.
Ong.
Are you the Avatar?
Avatar!
I think it was just Iro and Ong.
That's bad.
Which, to be fair, that is the proper cultural pronunciation, but it's still weird.
Yeah. Like, come on, man. Anyway.
Yeah, we set out on our journey from the Shire, and gorgeous backgrounds in this scene. It's almost like... It has this very interesting aesthetic. It's almost like the Sleeping Beauty aesthetic, where all the trees are super vertical and horizontal. It's like...
Angular.
Yeah. It's kind of like a medieval tapestry kind of style, almost.
Yeah.
Hobbitses don't wear shoes.
They don't. Their feet are hard enough to walk on bare rock. It's fine.
So would yours if you weren't such a coward who wore shoes.
Anyway.
Yeah, why are you not following the lead of our Lord and Savior Rapunzel?
Yeah, you got hairy feet like a hobbit.
I do. Bare feet? No, proud feet. That's another thing that Jackson ripped off from this movie. The Hobbit with his foot on the table going, proud feet.
Yeah.
Which is a funny scene, so fair.
What else happened in this movie? They have a pony named Bill and nothing bad happens to him.
It was sad.
Poor Bill. The poor Bill.
Yeah, in the Peter Jackson movie, right before they're going into Moria, they say, goodbye, Bill.
Yeah, the mines are no place for a pony.
And Bill just walks off. In this movie, not so
To
much.
have his own adventures.
They do find him later in the Return of the King book, though, so he's not dead.
Okay.
Bill.
Thank you for that, J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah, it's speaking of the book, a lot of the more interesting, for lack of a better term, character acting does actually come from notes in the book.
Such as?
Like, let's see. Hold on. I gotta find it in my notes.
Oh yeah, 3PO is Legolas.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Daniels.
Yes.
In the one other thing he's ever done.
Yes.
And he doesn't do a whole lot in this movie. Like, in the Two Towers Peter Jackson film, Legolas is like one of the best characters.
Yeah, he's a beast.
His shooting competition with Gimli is fantastically hilarious. In this movie, he's barely in it. He shoots arrows and never talks.
Yeah.
He shoots arrows. He looks gorgeous.
Yes, very pretty.
Oh, yeah. I found it. In, certain character moments, like one that I feel is kind of lesser in terms of like character moments is early in the film when Gandalf convinces Bilbo to leave the ring to Frodo. Bilbo puts it in an envelope and then he's about to hand it to Gandalf, but then it drops and Gandalf snatches it from the floor before he can get it. That's in the book, but I prefer in the movie where Bilbo lets it go of his own volition. I feel it's a stronger moment for Bilbo, especially when you watch the Hobbit movies.
Oh, Bilbus.
Bilbo Baggins, only 3 feet
Bravest
tall.
little hobbit of them all. But yeah, and there's another one at the end of the film, spoilers, where Frodo and Sam are talking about how if they finish their quest, what they'll do next. Frodo's like, oh, Sam, after we get the ring to Mordor, after that, Sam, oh, just to get there will be enough. And then after that, Sam kind of gets up, saunters around, and whistles like, that's from the book, and it's weird there too. So don't blame that on just Bakshi.
Yeah, to me, like, the books, it's kind of interesting. Like, one of the reasons why this is so hard to adapt is that it's not a very character-driven book. It's more about the fantasy, the adventure, the lore, these larger-than-life places, and imagining this beautiful world of elves, wizards, goblins, and dragons, and there's these elaborate descriptions of the places that they're visiting and all these different songs.
There sure are.
Peter Jackson, or excuse me, J.R.R. Tolkien, like, invented entire languages for Middle Earth. This is kind of like the ultimately crafted D&D campaign kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's very episodic, so That's what makes it such a hard movie to adapt.
I actually have read all the books. I forgot to mention that in my history. Yeah, I feel like, is it fair to say that the Peter Jackson movies are a lot more character-based than high fantasy-based?
I'd say so.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I feel like in the dialogue, too, the dialogue in this movie is taken a lot from the books. And it feels like kind of, the high fantasy, like, oh, now we must go to Gondor. No, we must go take the path to Moria. They don't use a lot of the and thous like Rankin Bass did in Return of the King, and that's good. I didn't like that. But for Peter Jackson's films, even when they do go into these like long speeches about the glory of Gondor and all that stuff, it feels more natural to me for some reason. Like, it feels like I could say this in casual conversation. Is that weird to say?
Yeah, that makes sense.
We agree.
That's good. Anyway.
Yeah, I will say the Peter Jackson movie, despite being significantly longer, felt tighter in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it gave you more of a sense of continuity with the characters, where, you felt like this is building up to something. I don't know if it's the music or if it's the editing or just something about it, where this movie felt very episodic.
Yeah.
Scene by scene.
And you'd have some good elements to a scene, like John Hurt as Aragorn, or even the guy...
John Hurt didn't break his toe to make this movie.
No, he did not. Viggo Mortensen broke his toe once in Two Towers, and they used it in the film anyway.
And he almost drowned.
Oh yeah, he did. A lot of people almost died on PJ's Return of the King. Not Lord of the Rings as a whole.
People don't usually almost die on the production of animated movies, usually.
Usually.
I can't speak for the, crew behind the Emoji Movie.
Well, I mean...
Or Sausage Party.
A lot of animators do kind of work themselves to death. Like, in the early 90s at Disney, they were working so hard that they were starting to get these spasms in their hands and had to get it treated.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, it's a big thing in anime for people to work so hard they die of exhaustion.
Oof.
Like, in Japan, or like the Korean in-betweeners?
In Japan.
Oof.
I don't know about the Korean in-betweeners, but yeah.
Wow.
Hope they're doing okay.
A lot of the kind of episode-to-episode feeling of this movie comes from the fact that it is 2 books in one. It covers all of Fellowship of the Ring. Well, not all. But Tom Bombadil's not in it, but...
No love for Tom Bombadil.
But yeah, it covers most of Fellowship of the Ring and then like half of Two Towers. So it had to cram a lot in a 2-hour movie. And Ralph Bakshi, he talked about in the making of video I saw that he had to really push his animators to, be concise and on time. And his daughter remembers like saying, "Daddy, you're mean," while she visited. But yeah, like...
She was 36.
They were on a tight schedule, and they had to, get this out. So it makes sense that the movie kind of feels unfinished animation-wise and is rushed pacing-wise.
Yeah, it really starts to get glaring later in the movie. They really start glossing over plot points faster. The animation goes downhill significantly. The background...
That's funny. Yeah. Are animated movies usually made from the first scene to the last scene? Probably not. So how come it worked out that way?
I don't know.
It's different director styles. I know Disney doesn't work like that. They just assign people to different scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the studio's approach.
And one scene that really suffers this is the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. And we see the Balrog.
Oh, yeah.
Not one of the movie's better effects.
What is this effect, you ask? Well, it's a guy.
Did they buy a bat from a Halloween shop and just throw it across the...
Well, it's a guy.
He's
wearing a big moth wings, and he has
Mothman.
He has a lion head on, and they use stock creature effects that they would later use for Dragon and Secret of Nim.
That's Godzilla.
And there's exactly one shot in the whole scene that looks cool, and that's when their swords clash and destroy each other. I don't know why they didn't just animate the Balrog. He animated Treebeard. Why didn't you just animate the Balrog?
I don't know.
All the orcs are just people with gorilla masks on.
I actually think the weird, like, solarized film aesthetic kind of works for the orcs because it makes them look, like, dark and otherworldly and, like...
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying before. It's a neat contrast, and it's why the prancing pony scene looks so weird, because why does that contrast exist here?
Yeah.
What's going on?
If you were going more for the mood of, like, when the orcs are attacking Helm's Deep, the build-up to that scene is actually pretty intimidating, I won't lie.
For sure.
They start chanting that nonsense language, and, like, the sky gets all red. it's really cool, actually. I'm like, all right, this is cool.
But yeah, this is kind of parts that I mean when I say, like, I wish effects like this existed in a higher quality movie. Because I agree, it does look kind of cool. It just looks really weird existing in the same movie as this version of Samwise Gamgee.
Hooray!
Mr. Frodo, Mr. Frodo, Mr. Frodo, Mr. Frodo, Mr. Frodo, Mr. Frodo.
Yeah, this movie doesn't really have a unified aesthetic. I
Definitely not.
No.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
You can see what they were trying to do, but I don't know if they had the budget or the
Time.
I don't want to say artistic ambition, because this is definitely an ambitious movie.
It is really ambitious for its time, especially because Bakshi really did love Lord of the Rings and he wanted to be true to the source material. He even promised Tolkien's daughter that he would be true to the source material, and he is true to it.
Like, legit credit to Bakshi. Like, he actually did try to tell a legitimate, serious version of this story.
Especially at a time where animation's full babies.
Yeah, and fantasy especially isn't taken seriously.
Yeah, and like Bakshi, in an interview, he said, what interests him about animation is what you can do differently than in live action. In animation, we talk about this a lot, that you can compress characters and you can compress plot beats, and they take on a broader meaning through that compression. You know, it's like caricature of motion, caricature of characters. So
yeah,
and that is one of the good things about Bakshi, is he has a totally different approach to animation than other artists who work in animation, and that is a refreshing thing to see.
It really is.
I would like to see more Ralph Bakshis in the world, even if, you know, this is kind of a spotty movie and his movies tend to just be okay for me. They are very visually interesting and have a very unique style, all of them.
Yeah, because there are scenes in this movie that I think are a little better than the ones in Peter Jackson's films.
Yeah. Peter Jackson film as a whole, I would say, is way better. It's more coherent. It's,
oh, yeah.
You know...
Yeah, it's way more concise. The characters are a little more relatable.
It actually knows what it's trying to say.
The tone is a little more consistent.
Yeah.
Like, there is a bit in LotR, in the book and this film, Bakshi's film. It's kind of like a breather after, you know, how deep Moria was.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I kind of prefer what Peter Jackson did, where it wasn't a break. There was still this aura of, like, seriousness and severity to it, where Galadriel's kind of creepy and you don't know what she's about at first.
I read the book completely differently than you on that one. Like, for me, I read Lothlorien as being like this beautiful place with this beautiful celestial, like, Lady of the Woods. And the Peter Jackson movie, I was like, why is she so creepy?
Well, I did see it before, so that before I read the book, so that probably is why it informed my opinion of it. But, like, I do think, in terms of, like, a whole, like, the story, not really giving Frodo a break kind of helps what they did with his character in the movie.
Ah, okay.
And Boromir, too. I feel like they kind of didn't do Boromir a lot of justice in Bakshi's movie.
Boromir is Bigwig.
Oh, yeah.
He was also in Watership Down.
I actually really liked Bakshi's take on Boromir trying to take the ring. It felt more believable than the Peter Jackson movie.
But, like, they didn't really develop his character before that, is my thing. Yeah. Like, he's kind of in the background a lot of the time, and, like, he's kind of abrasive.
Yes, he is.
But he does have that one scene where Frodo stabs the troll, and he's like, hey, good job.
Yeah, again, like, in the Peter Jackson movie, a lot of the characters get more development, to be fair, because they have more screen time.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, like, in the Peter Jackson movie, we spend so much time in the Shire. We have a scene of Gandalf arriving, we have a scene of him and Frodo just driving together through the countryside, we have a scene of Bilbo in his house waxing poetic, and then finally we get to the party, where in this movie, we've got the prologue, and then it's already to Bilbo's speech at his party. So it's super compressed compared to the Peter Jackson movie in a lot of places.
Yeah, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
Becca, any thoughts?
Me? Not really. I'm not super invested in Lord of the Rings, unfortunately, so I can't really get into this kind of discussion, unfortunately.
That's fine. I feel like the overall atmosphere of certain scenes in Bakshi's 2 is, like, a little more ominous, which I kind of like especially Moria. In Moria, it definitely feels like they have to be sort of quiet, and there's something watching them, not just Gollum. Especially the scene where Pippin drops the stone into the well. And,
fool of a toque.
Yeah, fool of a toque. Throw yourself next time, fool of a Pippin. Like, it's very overacted, but it's very overacted. Yeah. But then it follows up with, like, not like in the Jackson one where the orcs start attacking then. It, like, in the book, there's this, like, soft tapping noise that they hear after it, and it's like, this moment of tension where they're all just like listening, like, oh crap, what's that? And then you just move on, and it's like, I like that scene.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
I feel like that's kind of a difference between the Bakshi version. Like, the Peter Jackson movie was very Hollywood, which works for some scenes and not as well for others. Like, the Bakshi movie was fine being very quiet and, like, subdued in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And I do think Moria is one of the places where that works, where in a big Hollywood blockbuster, they don't take time to slow down and breathe. It is just, you always feel like they're building towards something, which, again, kind of works in the movie's favor, but does make individual scenes have a little less impact sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there is something that I want to talk about with the camera. So one of the things that gives animated movies depth is, I don't know if it's officially the multiplane camera, but just like having different parts of the background on different planes and moving them around. This movie has exactly one multiplane camera shot in the entire movie. Weathertop. The entire rest of the movie is just a flat background with characters drawn on top of it, and
yeah, it's weird.
I was like, oh, okay, so we're using the camera once, and so that we can show that this mountain is off in the distance, and then I guess that's the only multiplane camera shot we're getting in the entire movie, so it kind of does limit what they can do with the camera. Like, a lot of the movie is made of medium shots of characters talking to each other, or wide shots of them walking through the wilderness, not so much like the panning shots and some of the things that Disney did with Snow White, where they had the camera spinning around with the multiplane camera. Like, they didn't do stuff like that, so the movie can feel a bit flat at times.
Yeah.
Like, especially with the aesthetic of the backgrounds, like, there's a lot of ink and, like, hatching lines in the background, so, I don't know, it kind of looks like a storybook sometimes. So, just kind of one of the little quirks of this movie.
Yeah, it's definitely quirky. I guess now what we can talk about is, would you have liked to have seen Return of the King adapted in this style?
Nah.
Yes, I would. I actually would have been really interested.
I actually like the characters. Give them a budget, and I'll change that to a yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I actually would have liked to see them do Return of the King too. Rankin Bass, they were perfect to adapt The Hobbit, not so much Return of the King.
Yeah.
Bakshi would have definitely given it the gravitas it needed.
Well, I'm interested in watching the Rankin Bass movies.
I mean, it's a guilty pleasure, but
The Rankin Boss... I said Rankin Boss. No. The Rankin...
The Rankin Bass.
Excuse me, it's Bass.
Oh, Lord. We just all love Pearl.
BASS is Bass.
Anyway, the Rankin Bass style works perfectly for The Hobbit, because The Hobbit was kind of supposed to be similar to a kid's book. It was, we're visiting all these fantasy locations and all these amazing things are happening. So it sounded kind of like a story that you might tell your children about the long days gone past. And Rankin Bass captures that style well. It has a very, old world aesthetic to it. It's very storybook illustration-y. It has a lot of folky songs, and the songs are good in The Hobbit, not so much in Return of the King.
There's songs in Return of the King.
Yes, but you know what is the best song in Return of the King?
Down.
No, not that. Where there's a whip, there's a way.
Are you kidding
Where
me?
there's a whip. We don't want to go to war today.
Stop.
But the Lord of the Lashes say, nay, nay, nay.
Shush, Jason, are you me right now?
No,
No,
we are not
that's
shooting
an
you.
actual song.
Those are in the movie.
Oh, no.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Left, right, left, right.
I love the songs in The Hobbit, though. Roads go
For sure.
Down in Goblin Town.
Noble grass and
Go let me wigs. Stop wigging.
Yes. Down to Goblin Town. Down. I can't sing that low.
No,
You
I can't.
go, my lad. Oh, my lad. Yeah, it's silly, but it works with The Hobbit, because again, that was more the style.
What about over the Misty Mountains old through dungeons?
Yeah, that's in there.
Caverns old? Ooh.
There's songs from the actual book.
Misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns cold.
There's a magic in that music.
And it moves through me. Anyway.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Clearly we've both seen The Hobbit a lot.
Yes, it's great.
Why Smeagol a frog?
Got him.
Club.
Why is he not? Anyway, what do we think about Bakshi's movie? Do we recommend it?
Yeah. There's enough good stuff in there that I would say, yes, check it out, but you're in for a bit of a ride.
I agree. I don't think it's overtly good, but I don't think it's terrible either. If you're a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, you probably like parts of this. It's not a bad movie. It's like parts of it are good, parts of it are bad. Make of it what you will.
I think a lot of it just suffers from the budget.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately.
All right, Carrie, what do you think?
All right, so the reason why I actually would like to see a Ralph Bakshi Return of the King is just because I like seeing different animation styles represent things. Like, even if they're not objectively, like, great, it's interesting. I would like to see people try and fail than just not try at all.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So you'd recommend this movie?
Yeah, I actually would recommend this movie. When I first saw this movie, I will say that I didn't like it. I thought it was just too much of a mess and too lazy, but later in my life, as I've gotten more interested in different animation techniques, this movie is a fascinating movie. Like, It is not the best as a coherent movie that will make you go, wow, that was great, but it is fascinating.
Yeah, that's a pretty good assessment.
Indeed. All right, I guess that's gonna do it for us here on Destination Animation. Who are we? What do we do?
I don't know. Who are you?
Who am I? I am Jason Knott. You can find my reviews on Whatever Reviews on blogger.com or on my Letterboxd account. I'll link it later.
And I'm Becca McGraw. I'm an artist or something. I may not be super invested in Lord of the Rings, but I'm invested in something, I'm sure. Why don't you go to my website, rebexorcist.com, and find out.
Cool. And I am Carrie Drevlo. You can find me on YouTube at Animation Critic, all one word. I am working on a new video series, which I've talked about a couple times. Look for that coming soon.
Yay! I'm excited.
Alrighty. Now let's get the H out of here. Play us out, Mitch. Frodo of the Nine Fingers and the Ring of Doom.
We gotta watch the Jim Henson or the Frank Oz Ninja Turtles.
Jim Henson. Yeah.
Do you like when I tug your beard?
Sure.
You can tell me no.
I literally don't feel anything.
I didn't know that Frank Oz did the live action Ninja Turtle puppets.
I think
he didn't direct it.
Am I wrong?
No, I don't think he directed it.
Ninja Turtles.
Jim Henson and crew did the puppetry, but I don't think either he or Frank Oz directed it.
Oh, well, that's what I thought, is that they did the puppetry. I didn't think they directed it.
No, yeah, Jim Henson Company did the puppetry. Oh, 1990. I thought one of them directed it. Oh, no, sorry, Steve Barron directed it. My bad.
Y'all bad. Anyway.
Luna,
I'm
get down.
gonna have to do kitty removal.
We now pause this recording for a kitty interruption.
Yeah, we're actually just gonna wait because she's gonna make noise.
Luna, we have to do this in a somewhat hasty manner. Carrie's gotta go to work.
Luna, you don't gotta be bad just for attention. Don't whimper, baby.
We don't gotta be.
Kick her out.
You can stay here.
I don't think she'll stay there. Kick her out.
Okay, I'm jolly baby. Mama says you gotta go.
Well, don't pin it on me. They're gonna be the favorite parent.
Oh no, but get the hell out of here. Go. Alright.
Jason, we're gonna have a food baby.
Wow.
Food baby.
Cut that out.
Okay.
The greatest adventure
is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said.
By the way, those songs were composed by Glenn Yarborough, who was also famous for writing a song in the 60s, which actually made the pop chart. Baby, the rain must fall, baby, the wind must blow, wherever my heart leads me.
Down, down, down in Goblin
baby,
Town.
I must go. Yes, down, down, the Goblin Town.
Yeah, I'm hitting stop.